P9. You remember then porine protein or pore protein, which was a very important virulent factor. It actually inhibits complement activation. So if the person is previously complement deficiency, so the complement deficient state, so it's actually it will be very hard for him to defend against a Neisseria infection. So these two are very important thing to look at the vivas to get the better marks. Now the lab diagnosis, the very important question in the any microbiology viva. Lab diagnosis is the first thing you should know about the topic. So let's have a look at the specimen. In specimen is actually different in male and female, as it causes different kind of diseases. In case of male, we will take the urethral discharge. There is a purulent urethral discharge in gonorrhea, but we will take it in only, we will find this discharge only in acute conditions. In chronic condition, there will be very less purulent discharge, as there will be urethral stricture, so urethral discharge will be scanty, and so we will take prostatic smear in that case. In case of female, it's endocervical swab. Never take vaginal swab, it will cause false results. Never take vaginal swabs. So these are the main, the commonly we will get to collect specimen if you suspect the gonorrhea. And if we remember the disease, we will take conjunctival swab to identify neonatal conjunctivitis. You can take joint aspirate, swab from skin lesion to, if you suspect it's a gonorrhea infection. Okay, now the microscopic picture, we will get gram negative diplococci, mostly intracellular diplococci in the polymorphonuclear cells. This is the microscope. If we do the gram staining, we will see that. We can do culture at the chocolate agar or the Thiermartin or the modified New York City media. These will grow Neisseria gonorrhoeae, characteristic Neisseria gonorrhoeae. Neisseria gonorrhoeae cannot be grown in blood agar media because it contains the inhibitory substance. So the blood should be hemolyzed at 80 degrees Celsius to form the chocolate agar. Then it will grow Neisseria gonorrhoeae. And if it is better to grow it at 5% CO2 and 37 degrees Celsius. This is the optimum temperature. That means it's a bit higher, so you cannot grow very good culture in the room temperature. So and it's a bit high carbon dioxide concentration needed. So these are the very important two things to know in the examinations regarding the culture of Neisseria gonorrhoeae. And now the biochemical, as gonorrhoeae, that means G, that means gonorrhoeae, that means G, that means glucose, but no M, so no maltose is the biochemical. And you can do the catalase test or oxidase test. Now you can to be sure. And last of all, this is the PCR. This is common thing. So these were actually the tests about Neisseria gonorrhoeae. And for getting higher marks, for getting extra marks, why serology has a little role in the diagnosis of gonococci, it's actually the same answer, because the antibody comes later, and there is a very variation in the pili protein, so the antibody making of antibody is a bit tough, and many sexually active males and females have this antibody previously in their body, so the serology is very tough. So it's a very commonly asked question for getting the higher marks. Okay, with this the Neisseria gonorrhoeae part is over. We will now look at the Neisseria meningitidis. Now we are going to talk about Neisseria meningitidis. First of all, its characteristics is the capsulated one. Remember, Neisseria gonorrhoeae is not capsulated, but Neisseria meningitidis is the capsulated one. And we can do 13 serotypes regarding these capsules and polysaccharide capsules. And remember that this B serotype is not immunogenic to human. So actually, if a vaccine is produced against this meningitidis organism, so all these are present except B. This B polysaccharide capsule cannot be immunogenic, so the vaccine cannot be made against this, but ACYW135, these are actually in the present in the vaccine. This is a very important thing. And in case of Neisseria meningitidis, it ferments maltose and glucose both, because it has M and it has G. So it's a very important thing to remember in the Viva and in the any examination. Okay, now let's move forward. What are the virulence factors? As is a capsulated organism in any capsulated bacteria, capsule itself is the virulent factor, because it prevents phagocytosis and it has 13 serotypes, so it's also a very important virulent factor. Then there's the endotoxin. It's also causes cell destruction, IgA1 protease, so it breaks down the immunoglobulin A found in the secretions, which helps in colonization. The most important thing, and a different factor H binding protein, which inhibits the complement C3b. That's a very important thing, that C3b is inhibited by the factor H binding protein, and it helps in the colonization and invasion of the Neisseria meningitidis. So these were the virulence factors. Now let's go to the pathogenesis of Neisseria meningitidis. Neisseria, as we remember, is actually secreted. The route of entry was the respiratory route or the oral route. So after entry, it colonizes in the mainly in the nasopharynx. Then after the nasopharynx, it is invades the mucosa, and after getting to the mucosa, it can go to the blood, and through the blood it can disseminate and it can cause meningitis. And through blood it can also cause meningococcemia, that means a sepsis kind of condition. And the severe form of meningococcemia is Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, that we're going to discuss in a few minutes. Okay, the pathogenesis was a bit easier. Now the clinicals. What diseases cause the Neisseria meningitidis? As the name suggests, it causes the meningitis. So we will get the signs and symptoms of headache, neck stiffness, photophobia, vomiting, and remember one thing to look, it is the rashes, petechial rashes. If you find a patient, especially from 6 months to adult like 28 years of old, and please don't forget to search for rashes, and if you get the rashes, it's most probably due to a Neisseria meningitidis, or any, is most probably due to a bacterial meningitis, most probably due to Neisseria meningitis. So this is very important thing for the management of a meningitis patient. It's a very important thing. And you will also get the common signs of meningitis like the Karnik signs, Budzinski signs. These are also found in the patient of Neisseria meningitis caused by Neisseria meningitidis. Okay, and meningococcemia causes Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome. It is actually due to the hemorrhage in the adrenal gland. Which causes adrenal insufficiency, which causes hypotension, fever, shock, DIC. Those are very grave complications of meningococcemia. This is a Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome. It's actually question for getting higher marks in the any examination, the most severe form of meningococcemia. Okay, now we are going to discuss about the lab diagnosis. As we have said earlier, lab diagnosis is the part and parcel of any topic in microbiology. So in case of Neisseria meningitidis, the specimens actually are the CSF that actually causes meningitis. We can collect it through lumbar puncture. If we suspect meningococcemia, we can draw blood. And if to find out the carriers which are very high in some societies, we can do nasopharyngeal swab. But CSF is actually the main thing that we are going to look forward. In microscopic study of CSF, if we do wet film, we will get plenty of pus cell, huge amount of pus cell. That's a characteristic of bacterial meningitis. Okay, after the preparation of wet film, commonly we will do the Grammy staining and we will get gram negative diplococci. Okay, then we will do it's a Neisseria meningitis. We will do oxidase test, and oxidase test will be positive. Maltose fermentation, it will ferment maltose, and for rapid diagnosis is the latex agglutination test. This is the very important thing, because in a patient of meningitis you will not get very much time to do culture and other things. So lattice agglutination test will give you a rapid result. It will detect that capsular polysaccharide in the spinal fluid or CSF, and you will tell that this is a organism, this is a meningitis caused by Neisseria meningitis. You can also send a specimen for other culture like McConkey or Lowenstein Jensen, but those are actually to exclude other organisms, not to confirm meningitis. Now, very important thing, that is the last slide, that what are the CSF findings of Neisseria meningitis. The pressure, first one is the look at the pressure. It may be increased or it may remain normal. Color, it will be hazy, it will be like creamy. In comparison to viral meningitis, it will be clear. The cell count is the main thing. Normal cell count in the CSF is 0 to 5 lymphocytes. But in case of bacterial meningitis, as example is Neisseria meningitis, the cell count is 1000 to 5000. Remember, neutrophils, not lymphocytes. Neutrophils per cubic millimeter of CSF. If it was a viral, there would be 10 to 2000 lymphocytes. If it was a tubercular, it would be 50 to 5000 lymphocytes. But as you are getting neutrophils in CSF, so it's most probably a bacterial meningitis, may be due to Neisseria meningitis. As in any bacterial meningitis, the protein level will be increased and the glucose level will be decreased. So this is the very characteristic CSF study due to, in the bacterial meningitis, where you will find this same picture in the Neisseria meningitis infection. What are the prophylaxis? You can have rifampicin, very common. If you find a carrier of Neisseria meningitis, you can have rifampicin, or you can have ciprofloxacin to eliminate the carrier. And these are the commonly used prophylactic drugs. So with this slide our video actually ends, and so thank you all, and don't forget to give love, share and subscribe to our video.